So we're going to go to probably, I guess Nathan's going to handle the opening on this. Is that right? I didn't ask.
I would be delighted to do so.
Okay. And we're going to discuss different proposals and different parts of this downtown plan. This is a work session for the council, so I doubt there'll be many comments unless one of the council people asked you for your comment, okay? So Nathan, if you would, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As the council is aware, the City of Graham partnered with BGMPO, the Burlington Graham Metropolitan Planning Organization, and NCDOT to plan, for future infrastructure in the downtown area. This is a draft of the recommendations that were made by the consultant over the almost year-long process that went through with that group.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the staff? Melody, any questions?
No, sir.
Griffin?
No, sir.
No, sir. Lee?
No questions, man.
All right, with that being said, I'm going to go to Griffin. He is the person that asked for this work session, so we're going to go to him and let him start the ball rolling and see where we go with this.
Well, after thinking about this for 4 or 5 months and getting to where we got last month, I did have a suggestion I'd like to present to the council. And in essence, it keeps the plan intact, but adds an additional appendix to the rear of the existing document. It seems to me that the dichotomy, the opposing sides of what's going on here is what people want to have in a document that sits on a shelf as a resource, as it specifically says, as a planning resource for the case that we may partner with DOT on certain parts of it. And then there's another side that thinks every word on paper is an actionable item that's going to happen. So my suggestion to the council, and I've got a document, an additional page that would run on page 147 of the document as an additional appendix D, addresses the conditions of implementation of such a plan. I'll be happy to read that. I have copies to pass out. If council wants to consider it, I'm only one of 5. But I think what this does is puts in a system of checks and balances that doesn't allow for the ideas you see on the page to come to fruition without significant conversations, significant studies, it's been suggested recently that they go through committees, whatever the path, whatever the things, the items we want, the goals and conditions of that implementation to be. I think it's an important way to add this on to the existing document to create, like I said, to create an avenue for implementation of any single thing that may be in here. The value of keeping it intact to me is that when we resurface roads, when we do infrastructure and things come on top, having it baked into this original document by these consultants, by the group that we hired, allows for us to get the multimodal transit on top, the bike lanes, the things that I think make us a better community, make us a more vibrant community, as well as a lot of the different specific things with the sidewalk. It connects us to DOT in a way that doesn't marry us to any of the ideas, but it allows us to utilize them if we need it or we see fit.
So you've got copies of that you want to pass out? And we'll let you read it.
I've got, we want to make these available to anybody. Oh. So the first, well, I'll wait until. So the first significant statement, which is what we've tried, or I've tried to capture in what this document actually is, it says conditions of implementation. It is essential that the Graham Downtown Master Plan be used as a planning resource only and not a design document. The concepts that are recommended should be further developed if and when the City Council decides to move forward. All design details such as parking, type and number, active and passive amenities, street materials, landscaping, intersection reconfiguration, and many more elements described in the plan are put forth as best practice and can be refined or altered during the design phase of each project by City Council before being implemented. This plan is conceptual in nature, and all recommendations should be done in cooperation with property owners. This next part, the goals for implementation, if ideas are implemented, comes from the motion that Mr. Kimry made and ideas that were important to myself and others that I've spoken to. The goals for implementation should be additional planning and design should achieve pull-in parking on West and East Elm Streets where possible. Additional planning and design should maintain non-restrictive loading zones as close to current sites as possible. Additional planning and design should recommend the most yield of 40 angled pull-in parking spaces around the exterior of Court Square while exploring additional interior parking options as well. Let it be noted that the preferred rendering on page 35 is the smaller inset showing pull-in parking as opposed to the larger rendering shown on both 35 and 36. Additional planning and design should eliminate the idea of a splash park around Court Square. Additional planning and design should recommend the addition of a fire suppression riser system during any infrastructure upgrades in the downtown. Additional planning and design should consider all alternative routes for truck and vehicle traffic through downtown in addition to Gilbreth, Hardin, McCaden, Marshall, and Maple Streets. Additional planning and design should note that rear entry parking rendered on pages 42, 48, 50, and 51 is not actually preferred. Additional planning and design should note that the roundabout at McCaden and South Main Street is only one of several options to consider, including a traditional intersection. Planning should also note that reducing the road width and number of lanes north or south of this intersection on South Main Street will be dictated by this intersection. I had a work session, I can't remember the date, early August. This captures a lot of those thoughts that came from the community. It comes from a lot of conversations I've had. I'm open to tweaking, wording, adding, taking away. I'm one of 5, so that's what I've put together. I'd love it to be considered. I think it's a good compromise. It leaves the elements on the shelf that we can use and save money. It should be noted that the value of adopting this is not necessarily implementing what's in it, but having the options of hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost savings in addition to the sunk costs we've already have of $50,000. I think all those are important to keep it intact, but put in systems that make it create more logical paths with checks and balances to fruition.
What does everybody think?
First of all, Griffin, I'd like to thank you for including my concerns in the motion that you've submitted here today. Thank you for that. I appreciate those being recognized, and I think what's been put forth here is reasonable. Is this something that you would like to see actually put in as an appendix at the rear, as you mentioned, and put into the plan for us to discuss in the future at a meeting?
Yes, and I think the goal of this was to work through and come up with a document that we could vote up or down on.
Sure.
At the date of our next meeting,
sure,
the 5th. I would, as I said from that point, I want to see a final document. If it gets adopted, if it doesn't, it deserves a vote after 8 months.
So being able, from a staff standpoint, to implement this within a plan and then get the plan into a agenda is reasonable as well. That's feasible, correct?
I think we're exactly where we were a couple of meetings ago, with the exception of 1 or 2 items. I think at that point, it's important to note the conditions of implementation are exactly what a conceptual plan is. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. If we don't like a concept, then we may want to take it out. However, we should be dealing with details when we get to that point, not now. I think that we've dealt with all the conceptual parts of it that we've listed here, the goals that were bothersome to all of us and to the community for the general part of it. I think the rest of the details will be ironed out as we start to get to each phase of it. You've talked about we're not going to move until we go through public meetings. That's exactly what was going to happen anyway. It has to. That's the way that this happens. So to say that those things, I appreciate the fact that you've put it all in writing. That's exactly what the plan is supposed to do and how we're supposed to go about dealing with it. And I agree. I am good with your recommendations. I think that we've been very conscientious about the things and listening. And I think we've put in the major concepts. Whether everyone wants us to do details, that's not appropriate, not at this time. But I think this is a good thing and a good thing for us to be able to settle on.
I've got two questions, and the obvious question is, why would you leave anything in a plan that you could never do? A splash park, why not eliminate wording of it and it would be gone? I mean, then it would never be voted on.
There are cases where that, and this is just my opinion, where that can be done. The splash park can be just yanked out. The problem is with the roundabouts, road width, lane, numbers of lanes, all those things sort of, one is tied to the next, is tied to the next, is tied to the next. When you get into actual layout, intersection configuration, there are things upstream that are affected things by downstream. I thought this just made us consider everything case by case.
I know, but I'm just asking the thought of, why wouldn't you just eliminate it completely?
That's fine with me.
I'd be fine with a
Yeah,
motion.
I'm perfectly fine with that as well.
I don't think
I
there's
understand.
anybody that agrees that a splash park downtown is a good idea.
It's a great thing
But
in the
as
park.
long as it's in this document, it's a possibility.
As you mentioned, I believe, Melanie. Yep.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion right now to remove the splash pad.
Let me put another one in there, and let's say the park at beside the Roast
I
Coffee
think you could
Depot.
just X out around Court Square at the end.
Right.
Leave the language
Leave
like
it
it is
to
and just
splash
X out
park.
around Court Square. And that would take care of it in the plan as an entirety, because you've specified around. So just eliminate
Where are you on?
around Court Square, the last three letters of your original request.
Forward.
And I think that would take care of it out of the plan period.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I think it's not good practice to have a motion made to do something to the
I'm
plan.
not making a motion, and we're not going to
Yeah,
accept
yeah.
motions here today.
Yeah.
Anything we talk about is among us and the public. We will not make any motions. We said we wouldn't do that here, and we won't.
Correct. That's why I was careful to say request.
Yeah.
Well, this is a work session.
Yes.
How do we get a formal document to look at the next meeting?
I think by consensus, we can do a consensus to put something together to vote on.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
What else, Jerry?
The next thing, I really want a foolproof way that anything that we are going to act on, let's take Rogers Roundabout. If we were going to act on that, we need a full disclosure that everybody knows that that's going to come up. Not just the two property owners that will be affected, but everyone. So somewhere in here, it needs to make sure anything that we do that's in that plan needs to be advertised, that we're going to make a attempt to do it.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm just
I
putting
mean,
stuff
no,
out
no,
there.
no, I
So
was
just
going,
tell me what you
Griffin,
think.
Griffin had something. Go ahead, Griffin.
Do you see that as could you see that as an additional bullet point that says
I could.
all surrounding property owners?
I could see it as bullet point that we need to make public anything that we do that's within the scope of this plan.
Mr. Mayor, I think that we should pull that whole thing out of the plan. That's DOT, that's their problem.
You're talking about the round.
Yes,
I
sir.
use that in there.
I agree with you. I just think that should just be taken out of the plan. That's DOT's problem. And my discussions with DOT, they're not going to do a roundabout there. It's
Again,
not
I was
feasible.
using that as an example. I'm sorry,
I had that highlighted, that I'd like to see that come out of the plan, as well as reverse parking. We're not going to consider that, so
Yeah,
why
that was
should that even
already-
be there?
That was already in the request.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, reverse angle parking.
and the wording is it just says is not actually preferred. I think we should just pull that out, pull the thing about the roundabout out, and my opinion. And as far as Main Street and all that's DOT. Water, stormwater, that's all DOT's problem, as long as we don't change that street in any way. I think we should leave it just like it is.
Which
It's a
street
lot
are you
more
referring to?
complicated
Street.
than
Main Street.
Yep, Main Street is DOT's. That's their problem as far as stormwater goes. Now, if we go to changing that street in any way, then that's going to be our problem. I think that
We've we sort of took this away from where I was going. I was just going to notify people if anything in this plan was going to be.
And I'm totally agreeable with that. And I actually am agreeable with removing the image of the roundabout. Just remove it and allow DOT to look at all options available, as you mentioned in your request.
The general.
Just eliminate that image.
I can live.
I'm fine with that. Just get the image of that out.
And eliminate the.
That
first
way,
part.
that way future administrations or whomever in the future won't look at that as something that we determined that was useful there. Just let DOT look at all available options and remove the image. I'm okay with that.
Frankie, Jerry's concern regarding being sure that we advertise, is that not already being done?
Various aspects of the implementation would go through the normal legislative process, which is in an open meeting, whether it's a public hearing for an operating budget, would be a special project budget. All of those things are done in the public. DOT improvements generally go through a public comment process where they have meetings. It would probably go through the TCC, TAC process where city has representation, and those are also public meetings as well. So there will be opportunities for the public to see the implementation in action in various forms.
I move you back to Bill Cook Park. That was voted on 11 o'clock one night, the naming of Bill Cook Park.
It wasn't on the agenda, was it? Was how it got voted on?
That's the whole issue. It was not on the
Okay.
agenda.
Well, I think anything else that we do is on the agenda. I mean, I wouldn't use that as an example at this point. We have a policy that nothing comes up on at the end of the night can be voted on. So
That's a
That's
consensus.
exactly
of the-
right. And
That's a
I've publicly
consensus
came
of
out, since
five
I've served
of
on this council, that I at no time will vote on anything that's not publicly
Right.
advertised on the agenda. And I've made that years and years ago, I think my second year on council, because there was a situation that made me understand how important it was that we never discuss or vote on anything that's not publicly advertised and on an
I
agenda.
just want to make sure we do every.
Now,
avenue that
but
we
I'm
can do.
okay with advertising this to adjacent property owners of affected areas. I'm
Well,
okay
a
with that.
roundabout at Rogers spot is affecting everyone,
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
everybody.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we know that we're going to do our due diligence and letting everybody know. We have to go walk downtown.
Absolutely.
I'm fine with adding wording, adding additional bullet points. I don't think it's as easy as Councilman Turner's suggestion of pull it out. I've studied this. One thing affects the next, upstream, downstream. It affects the number of lanes. Pulling the roundabout out affects the next 7 pages of the document.
Yeah,
to
what
some
about just
extent.
the image and just leave your request in place?
Even though, I don't feel strongly about it. I think you get into pulling specific pages out and it's a wormhole.
Okay.
Well,
I think you change the wording on page 4 or 6 or 8, and then, we can do it. We can spend 3 or 4 hours on it. But what I was trying to do is summarize all the concerns.
I'm perfectly fine with that group. I just know that the image seems to draw some concern, but I'm okay. As long as I think your request spells it out nicely.
I'd rather it not be in there, but like I said, I think you're going to have conflicting messages later in the document that refer to something that's not in the document.
I've said from the very beginning, the toughest thing about this is managing what's on top of the ground. I think everyone understands clearly the importance of water and sewer and the upgrades that we've already approved, but it's everything that takes place as far as stormwater on top that seems to be causing the most concern.
But also, again, this is conceptual.
Mhm.
So we keep trying to go back into the weeds and correct something and take something specific of, I want it here or I want it there. That shouldn't be done at this point.
Yeah.
That's coming when it's all studied together as a whole and what makes sense and how it makes sense. Do we like that part? No, we don't, but there's an appropriate time when we're going to get ready to be able to do that.
Let's take a conceptual drawing of a roundabout at Roger Owsley's business. Roger wants to sell his business with that drawing over his head. How's he going to sell it? That would reflect on his ability to deal that property.
That Main Street is not our highway, whether we wanted to do that or not. DOT is not going to let us do that.
No, but this
I'm
plan
just
gives us
giving you
soft
a-
power.
a
It does
for
give us
I
soft
mean,
power.
but I don't see where it's ever gonna happen, so why have it in there?
But if that drawing is there,
That's what I'm saying. Let's take it out. We don't have anything to
we
do with
take it
Main
away
Street.
from Rogers. Let's go down to Elm Street and Walker, that neighborhood.
Elm Street.
If
and
that
Walker.
drawing is there, how is that man gonna sell or woman gonna
That-
sell
that-
that piece of property that is mainly?
So you're asking about just taking out the drawing.
Yes, the image.
I'm fine.
Just the
Let's take out
image.
the drawing.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't care.
Griffin, you're on.
Yeah, fine. It appears, I've just seen it in 4 different places on 4 different pages in a view from 30,000 feet of all of South Main Street.
And
So-
it's a piece and a part of it. It is, the way that this conceptual.
I'm arguing less that, but more we would need a new rendering.
Will this not go to a final printing if we make changes at all?
Well, there's got to be a master plan of it.
Mm-hmm, yeah, with all the changes.
A lot of it's got to be changed. There's no detail to this.
Right. Go ahead.
So at some point, there will be a design document that's done before more monies are spent with public input on specifically the roadway project for North Main Street, or the roadway project for South Main Street, or the roadway project for West Elm Street. But if you want to make changes to something that the consultants drew, their contract is now up, that would require some funds to have them re-render those things. The angled parking one, the dimensions don't change, but you have to hatch everything in the other direction. I think that if it says clearly in the appendix, we are not doing reverse angle parking, front end angle parking is what the city is interested in pursuing here. You don't need anything additional. To me, that's clear.
Let's make the language tougher on it. Instead of saying it should note that the roundabout at McCaden and South Main is only one of several options, just say a roundabout should not be considered at that intersection.
I'm fine with that.
I'd actually put in that a recommendation of removing the image at roundabout at McCaden and recommending engineers look at all possible alternatives of rerouting truck and car traffic, allowing for more traffic calming of Court Square traffic. But that's very similar to what your request as well.
I would agree with that.
Say something.
And
that just pretty
and
much-
pay attention that we've also listed rendering.
Like what Griffin said about shall not, but I would put the word in will not. Unless DOT says it will.
Yeah.
Can't do any of this.
That's
on Main
my
Street
whole
unless
point.
DOT. But-
That's my whole point. And
Well, that is a point, Chip.
I've already
DOT
talked to
has already
DOT
been-
and they said it ain't gonna happen. So why even upset the apple cart and leaving it in there? That's just my perspective.
Back to the point that I made, you can't just pull a picture or pull a sentence without it affecting. I mean, you know how planning goes, right? I mean, everything's tied to each other.
I don't see really where that roundabout, if it comes out, is gonna be tied to anything.
But we would have to get the plan redone, which we're out of contract on, re-rendered, out of
We just
pocket.
word it, that we're removing it from our plans.
That's what we're just suggested.
I can live with that if we
Yeah.
say will not.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm all right with that too.
So-
Do you have something else at the coffee shop?
We're gonna never build a park right there at one of our parking lots next to Roasted Coffee Depot. I don't see that as an option, so why would it ever be in there? I mean, we're half a block away from another downtown.
Yeah,
Or-
that was gone out of the draft.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
removed
that's
already.
gone. So we're good there, I think.
That's what we're
Yeah,
good there.
we're good.
The rendering was placed at the Sesquicentennial.
Yeah, an upgrade there in the future, potentially.
If it's still in there somewhere, please let me know where it is and we'll take care of it.
Chip, to keep the language and similar to the other bullet points, additional planning and design should not pursue a roundabout at McCaden and South Main Street, shown on page 28.
Okay.
Did you want to put something in there about unless DOT in the future decides
I think
otherwise?
saying that planning and design shouldn't pursue it,
Okay.
that takes us out of it. I mean, the city of Graham should not pursue it, and
Okay.
it should not reflect this document.
I'm with that.
Could you put in there any roundabouts within the city limits of Graham?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
DOT is already considering roundabouts in Graham.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean,
DOT is,
They're gonna do it if
is
they wanna do
considering,
it, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Good practice to say you're against everything across any board.
Keep in mind about the period of time which this may be implemented. This is not going to be implemented tomorrow. It may not be implemented in 5 to 10 years. Somewhere in that process, it may be there, but we don't know what's going to be available to us, what other things are going to happen in the community from 5 to 10 years. So getting too detailed about a lot of things out. We don't know. You can't sit here and make decisions 5 years out. That's why you're leaving it conceptual. That's
Mhm.
why it was done conceptual.
You say that, and we've got a 35-year plan. I mean, a plan up to 2035. So,
It's a guide. That's all
I
it
know.
is.
what else we got?
Here are my concerns, Mayor.
How about the Court Square? How about the parking around Court Square? That's one of
That was in
them,
there. Yep.
one of them, the most. I
due
know it
to-
is, but is that,
Yeah, I think that's very sufficient because that's looking at the most yield possible of pull-in parking as we currently have it.
I would love to see something done with the after 5 parking there. The reserve parking for the court system, the clerk of court. I think after 5, that should go to free parking for anybody.
Well,
Agree with that.
also too, in Griffin's request is one of my original amendments was that to look at all options available for interior parking for the court system there on the interior portion of Court Square as well. But you're talking about,
I'm talking about after 5, why does the sheriff's department need a drop-off for their prisoners at 5 o'clock?
we might need to talk to the county about
That can be resolved through regular legislation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not uncommon to see parking restrictions in cities, in downtowns, where there are time limits. It's reserved from this time to this time for street sweeping or trash collection or for court operations. And then after that time, it's open to the general public. So that can be through signage and general legislation of the council.
I just want a sign up there because my wife would not pull into a parking place reserved for the clerk of court, even though she was there at 9 o'clock at night. I wouldn't either. Verify it a little bit if you can.
Though there might be those times where those spaces are used late into the evening for the appropriate staff. We just have to, it'll be a discussion we need to have probably with the county and make
Right.
sure.
And during the design process. I
Yeah.
mean, We don't know
Oh,
what
yes.
signage to put when we don't know what design
Yep.
is being implemented. This talks about the planning and design, things we don't want to include.
What else does anybody want to bring up? Else?
So we're just the one change to the bullet point about the roundabout.
There was one about
studied.
advertising of any changes on the ground. I don't think that that's for the plan. I think it might be a
That's ours.
broader policy
Policy,
for the city that as staff, we would like significantly more clarification on that. Does that mean, and I don't think that it does, but does that mean one tweet that says, hey, we're thinking about changing the interstate? I think there should be more clarification on what it is that should be and how that should look. And if you want us to come back with some of the recommendations that other jurisdictions do in North Carolina, we're happy to create a list and say, hey, Burlington does this, Cary does this, Roxborough does that, and see what y'all think.
My concern is that right now our regulations say we go to the affected homeowners or business owners. But a roundabout at Rogers Place would affect the entire city. It needs a little more attention.
Would you like us to go to other
I
municipalities? and
would
see?
study that and come up with a plan that anything on this in this plan that's implemented that the entire city is given notification.
Are you narrowing it to this plan, or is that?
Just look and see what other people are doing.
Yes, sir.
And we can go
Can
that
we-
way. Tell me what you think.
I want to be able to vote on the document. I would like,
This has nothing to do with voting on the document.
it'll delay it.
Yeah,
It won't. That would not delay it because this would be in our
We're not,
our due diligence, not the plans.
yeah, it'd be more of a policy issue and not within the plan, but
so you don't want, we'll still leave here today with a plan intact that we can vote on.
This does not have anything to do with the plan. This would not be in your plan. It would be
Okay.
an action that our staff would take and we would take if we were going to do anything.
and look, I'm all for better informing the public as to what we're talking about at all times. I'm the one that pushed to get our meetings recorded online. You know that. I pushed for many years through the budget cycle. We need to get the information out to the public. I am supportive of any way that we can better inform the public and push to get these and having the meetings online now and having them live stream is a beautiful thing as well. So it attempts to get more information out to the public, and that's a goal of mine as well.
Even if we have to do some online stuff, where we go out and say it on my page, your page, or like the whole city's page.
Well, we got the Sunshine List. Let me get that out correctly, which is a list that any agenda goes out to a certain group of people. We could extend that. That's been an idea that's brought forth, that anyone that wants to get information on what we're talking about on any agenda can be on the Sunshine List, which is just a mass emailing that goes out. Typically, now it goes out to a group of people in the press and et cetera. Could we expand that within
It as
reason?
a mass email instead of a paper copy.
Anyone that wants to be on the list.
Anyone
as
that
well.
wants to be on the list can be on the list.
And that's state law.
Yep. So we have that list available for anyone that wants to be on there. It's simple email that goes out anytime there's anything on the agenda, and that
I
helps.
explained the Sunshine List to quite a few people.
Mhm.
But we used to print out all this stuff. Don't want to make the Sunshine List a printable copy. It needs to be.
I think typically we go a step further with agendas. The Sunshine List is intended to notify individuals that there's a meeting happening. I think we've traditionally taken it one step further and sent either a link to the agenda, or
Exactly.
the agenda packet.
Yeah.
So that's one step further that we've taken as a city of Graham that I don't think is required. The minimum requirement is we are having a meeting.
But that list has been very beneficial from what I understand from people in the community that are on it, because it does give them where to go find the information on the agenda.
Yeah.
And that it's been very successful, and I think it needs to be more of a popular program for everyone who wants to get information on what we're talking about.
I wouldn't publish the details of getting them on the Sunshine List. How that? Can we have a phone call to get somebody on there, or do they have to come up?
Normally, we are less formal with it. You just ask me.
Yeah.
And give me your email address, and we'll put you on there. Some cities require a little application or letter, but give us a correct email address. It's no big deal at all.
Anybody else got any concerns? If not, then I need a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Need a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for being here. I don't know if we helped you any sitting in your seat, but I think we helped ourselves a little bit. We'll try to make whatever changes we can make into this document, and there'll be public comment on it next month or the month after, whenever we decide that we're ready to vote on this as a document. We'll let everybody know. Okay? Thank you again for being here. I appreciate it.